Hi, my last video did pretty well, so I wanted to go ahead and do a how to beat Law video. Now, somehow at the regional this past weekend, there was a Law, or multiple Laws that actually did pretty well in the tournament. I'm not saying Law is an absolute trash deck. I did kind of imply that in my tier list video. I think maybe people just don't understand how to play against the new Law, or like the new version of Law. So I'm here to make this video because I really think that deck is severely hindered, and I think it should win a lot less than it is doing currently. So I'm going to teach you guys how to beat Law. Now, again, most of this is going to be in generalities, so if, something I say isn't entirely true all the time, of course, because, you're not, every game is different, every scenario is different, but I will be giving you scenarios on how to beat Law, for example. So, if you are playing a slower deck, a deck like Crocodile, or a deck like, I don't know, I'd say Film Dofi, right? Now, Film Dofi definitely can get a lot quicker, especially, with the new build that I actually posted. But slower decks like that, you normally have to starve them out of resources, the Law at least, all right? Because when you think of it like this, right? They usually take their first 2 life for free, Law does, right? Because they need the cards in their hand to be able to combo off. Now, they did that in set 1, where pretty much they had a full power deck, right? Minus obviously Radical Beam. They went from playing 2 to playing 1, but in a full power deck, they took their first 2 life to be able to find the pieces that they needed to combo off, and sometimes it still wasn't enough, right? Now, in this severely hindered version of Law, they're going to take their first 2 life for free, and then possibly have what they need to combo off and like make Law really powerful. However, in slow decks like Crocodile, like I said, and Film Dofi, and like other control decks like that, right? Like Rebecca, obviously the main point is to starve them out of resources, and they try to play around that by playing like cards like Sanji, or well, I guess really Sanji is like the only thing that they can use that actually makes, it allows them to get cards to their hand. But yeah, they try to play around that by playing Sanji, right? Some of them are playing Sanji, some of them are not, but in slow decks, the starve tactic is the best way to go, especially early on. And I'm not saying starve them out until you have complete control of the board, because that's likely not going to happen just because they have so many like cards that get other cards. What I'm saying is in the first couple of turns, it's probably best to starve them out. For example, if you're playing Crocodile, because Crocodile is my bread and butter, right? Crocodile, if you just like don't attack their life for the first like 2 to 3 turns, by the time you hit like Soga King or Mihawk, their board is like, they're going to be just beginning to build their board, right? They're going to like be on, like, they're just going to be able to start using their leader ability to shambles, right? And it's going to be a lot harder for them to get all the pieces they need if they have 4 life and they're playing with 5 or 6 cards in hand. Especially, they're not going to be able to turn any of their characters sideways, so you're like, the pressure is not really on you at all, really, because there's no way that they can provide pressure if you're not giving them cards, because they're going to need every single one of those cards to go back to their hand to be able to use their leader effect, right? So the first 2 or 3 turns, while you're like building up your board, while you're like playing your Pacifistas from deck with Senamaru, while you're playing your Film Nami, getting the card advantage, while you're playing Sugar, getting rid of some of their cards, while you're Orlumbus, I don't know, KOing stuff with Kyros, they can't do a whole lot, right? Because their entire game plan is to be able to take every card that turns sideways and put it back into their hand to be able to counter out with, or to search for more cards. And when you deny them of those 2 cards, those 2 cards could turn into 5 other cards, because they search and then bring them back to hand, and they, all of that, they counter. They can get a lot of advantage from just having access to those cards, right? And if you deny them of that for the first 2 or 3 turns, and then you start attacking them all at once, they're going to, of course, take their first 2 life pretty easily, and then their board's going to start cracking, right? Because then they're going to have to use their Beige, they're going to have to use their Foster, they're going to have to use their, I don't know, some people are playing Chopper, some people aren't, but they're going to start having to use their blockers. And when you're bottom decking their blockers, when you're like getting rid of their board, when you're swinging really tall, they're going to have to keep taking this life, and they're going to run out of blockers eventually, especially because you already have at this point a really big board, right? Like by the time you start attacking them, you already have like at least 2 6k attackers, maybe a 9k with Mihawk, or like obviously if you're playing like Film Dofi, you have like your Nami, your Luffy, all of that set up. If you're playing decks like Rebecca or Queen, like Rebecca has their Luffy set up with Kongun or, you know, whatever it is, and then Queen has like Mihawk and Yamato, that type of stuff right there. That's when you start attacking at Law, because they can of course block like one or two of them, but eventually they don't have the defense to get out of these attacks, especially because the defense they have, they want to play them to be able to like to gain advantage, right? Like if for example, if they play cards like, I don't know, like Izo, for example, right? Izo, they need to find like their Thatches, or like, I'm not sure if they're playing Jozu or not, but like they need Izo to find other cards like that. They need Izo to find Vista, and when they're discarding it as a counter because they literally can't go down to 0 life because like they're pretty much dead the next turn, and they're using their cards as counter, then they're in a super bad position and you're automatically going to pretty much win the game, right? Let's talk about removal, right? So if you have removal, it is by far the most important thing right now against Law, right? It was in set 3, but they like had ways to kind of play around it a little bit. You know, not that they were at full power, like they can search for a ton of like defense, right? Or just extra bodies with Nami and then keep recycling it. They don't really have that luxury now with Izo and Momonosuke, because they have like the characters that they play are so unimpactful. And what I mean by that is like they play cards like Vista, which are impactful in their own way in combination with Otama, but like Vista and Okiku and like Thatch, like the 1-cost Thatch, are pretty much the only cards they have that can like even attack your life very early on. And if you can deal with those early, like if they play Okiku on curve and you like bounce it with Zeph if you're playing Crocodile, or like you sugar it and swing 7 over 7,000 to 5,000, or you know you 3,000 worlds it, or whatever it is, like any Fire Fist, any type of removal, they're in such a bad spot because they don't have any pressure on your life, right? They're gonna find themselves at a point where like you have like 2 or 3 life and a ton of cards in hand, and like they're not doing anything to kill you, right? Like there may be swing with leader, swing 7k, you counter out, swing with leader again, you block, you know, play Law, do all that nonsense. Like even the cards you get off Law, like a lot of times they're not going to be as impactful. Like playing like picking up, like for example, playing Law, picking up Izo, replaying Izo, that's not nearly as good as playing Law, picking up Nami and replaying Nami. Now you find Radical Beam, now you find Guard Point, now you find a Brook or whatever it is, or a Luffy. Now you're finding cards like Vista, you're finding cards like Jozu, even cards like Fasa. Like they're just not as impactful as the cards in the previous meta were. So if you can get rid of these like cards that like put pressure on your life, like Okiku, like I guess Vista with 2 Dawn, and Thatch, those are like the only 3 that they really even attack with. I guess Zoro too. They're gonna find themselves in no man's land where like they're damned if they do, damned if they don't, because if they start being aggressive, they turn their characters sideways, and when their characters are sideways, they have to use more cards in their hand to be able to protect those characters, or they have to use their blockers on the board to protect those characters, and now they have less blockers to protect their life, which they normally take the first 2 for free, right? So it's like it starts becoming like almost like a compound effect where like you like stall that, like you freeze them out of resources, you get rid of their attackers, and they're in a weird spot where like no matter what they do, they're kind of in a losing position. And that's really how you beat Law for the most part. And to caveat what I was saying about removal, is it's more important to build a board first before you really start heavily removing. Now, if you could build a board and remove while in the process, obviously that's great. Like if you play cards like Zeph, or cards like I don't know, like Ulti, right? Like for OP04 Ulti, those cards build a board while taking away cards in the process, or cards like Sogeking, or cards like I don't know. I mean, I guess Sugar kind of does this. Like you play a character while like basically getting rid of like cards in their hand, right? With like Sugar, you rest either a blocker or you rest one of their big characters, and you swing at it and take cards out of their hand or kill it, right? It's very important to build that board, because like once you already have a board and you start cracking theirs, it makes it very tough for them to just like recover, right? Because like now they know that like they have pressure on them. For example, if you're playing Zoro and you on turn, let's say turn 2, you're at 3 Dawn, you Fire Fist their board, that is way better for the Law player than if you have like Zoro and like 2 1-drops and I don't know, like a marker on board, and then you Fire Fist and then like Jet Pistol, you like wipe 3 of their characters in 1 turn, and then you start swinging at their board or swinging at their life crazily, they're going to be in a very bad spot, because not only did you wipe their board, but in the same turn you wipe their board, you put massive amounts of pressure on them, and then the next turn they have to choose between cracking back at your board, going for life, or playing characters and like trying to like save some Dawn for defense, yada yada. Like they're gonna be put in a weird spot where like they can't do what they want to do, right? They can't really commit fully to cracking your board, because they have to build a board. They have to spend, I don't know, 3 Dawn on a Vista, they have to spend 1 Dawn on, I don't know, Ezo, 2 Dawn on Fossa. That's 7 Dawn right there, right? 3, 4, no, that's 6 Dawn right there, right? So like they can't really put a lot of Dawn on these characters, plus they don't really have a lot of characters on board, because you just crack their board, right, in the same turn. So like they just don't have the Dawn, they don't have the resources, they don't have the characters to really fight back, and they're gonna be in a super bad spot because you put them in that bad spot by waiting a little bit longer to remove their characters and then attack at the same time, right? Like you can't just like remove their characters and then next turn play characters and then remove their characters. Like it's too slow. It's not good enough, right? Decks like Zoro that has access to removal and aggro, or decks like even like Crocodile, right, can bottom deck with 3000 Worlds and bounce a blocker, blah blah blah, and then attack with Pacifista and Sogeking. Like even that is like way better than just like not doing anything and like just 3000 Worlds, 1 character, and then the next turn Red Rock the other character, the next turn like Mihawk the other character. Like that just doesn't do anything, right? They can just keep replacing those characters, right? But yeah, like build your board and then remove the characters all at once if you have the option. If not, build your board while taking away their characters, and then like keep like chipping away at their board. Like that would be the best bet to beat Law with removal decks, at least. We're not really going to talk about decks like Katakuri because there just isn't really like a simple route to beating Law. Like even the new Law still has like you can't just like play. I know a lot of the old strategies used to play like cards like obviously you still play Amande, but like you would just like hard play Amande and like use it whenever you needed to. But now that they're playing the Ezo build, like they have searchable Vista, so like Amande is just gonna get eaten alive. So I guess we'll talk about one tip for Katakuri, but like if you can, like if you think you're gonna live that turn, save all of your like your Struzans and like your Amandes for like when you already have a big board. Actually, this is kind of like the tip I just gave, right? But when you have a big board, like you save all of that removal, right? Like Amande and Struzan for the very end, where like you basically have to just go for game. If it, like you might have to take an extra life or 2, but like you have to designate, okay, this is my last turn, I'm going to use all of these like Struzan, all these on play effects, all of this to be able to pop your blockers and then go for game, because you just can't play Amande and like pass, because it's just gonna get eaten alive by Vista. Even Struzan, like I know a lot of people try to like just play Struzan, like pop a Bonnie, and in some cases that's good, right? But like if they leave the Bonnie on board like unrested, like in some cases that's okay, but a lot of times you get rid of a 2k and most likely a 1k out of hand, so you get rid of 3k worth of counter to be able like to kill 1 Bonnie. And a lot of times they use that as a bait, right? Because like they already have another Bonnie in hand, or like whatever it is. So like, and the only way for Law to beat for Law to beat Katakuri is to basically rush him down in life and flood the board with 5Ks, so that like he can't drop Big Mom successfully. And you're kind of helping his game plan when you're dropping 3k worth of counter out of hand, because now you can just go 5 life, 5 life, 5 life, and all of those attacks are connecting, right? So that's how Katakuri can beat Law right there. Now we're going to talk about a strategy, even if you are an aggressive deck, like decks like right now, like Magellan's very aggressive, decks like the new Luffy is very aggressive. I still think that it's really good. Like if you see a Law like hard brick, and like their first like 2 turns they play like Chopper Fossa, or like Fossa beige, that means they have like a super dead hand, right? Like that means they have like literally nothing. So again, starve them out of resources. Even okay, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. If you are playing an aggressive deck that normally tries to kill your opponent as soon as possible, and you're playing against a Law who is just dropping dead cards, like just a bunch of blockers, and like hoping you give them life, wait. Just like a slow deck would, wait like 1 to 2 turns to build up your board to start attacking really heavily all at once, because when they take at that point they're gonna take 2 or 3 life, and now for the rest of the game they have to play very defensively. They don't really have a lot of lives to give because they're down to like 1 life, maybe even 0 life, depending on how hard that you pressure their life in that one turn, and they're going to be on the back foot the entire game, right? So even if you are playing in a defensive deck, if you don't give your opponent the combo pieces to be, or I'm sorry, even if you are playing an aggressive deck, if you don't give your opponent the combo pieces when they're drawing dead, then you have a better shot of winning, rather than like they start out the game, right? They play Fasa, beige, right? And then you're like, okay, 6 at life with Luffy, right? They take it, oh, now it's a Bonnie. Now their whole engine started, right? And of course they can draw into Bonnie, but now you're giving them 2 cards, one from life, one for their draw, to be able to find their combo pieces to be able to wall off. Whereas opposed to if you attack very aggressively all in one turn while building up your board, even if you are a offensive deck, like a deck like Zoro, for example, that's still much better to do, because they're not only are you putting pressure on their life, but by not turning your character sideways, they have to give you cards to be able to protect your board better, right? It's like Law, for example, will just swing like 7 or 8 at life, like if they have nothing else to attack, and you're like, okay, fine, I'll take that. They'll do it again. Okay, that's fine, I'll take that. And then now you have tons of cards in your hand to be able to protect your board, and they can't crack your board at all. And you can also protect your life too with those cards in hand. And like the whole time they're trying to go for life, they're put on a clock because they can't deal with your characters on the board because they're either too big or there's too many of them or whatever it is. And now they're like, damn, I have to try to kill him because he has 4 characters on the board that are just swinging at my life constantly, and I can't take them out because I'm just like put in a bad situation. And then you just beat them because like they're put in a position where like they have to like just race against the clock, and a lot of times they're just not able to do that, especially when you're just like cracking their board every turn with like 5, 6, 7k swings. Like they just don't have the cards to be able to protect them. They have the blockers, but obviously if they're using their blockers to protect their characters, and as soon as those blockers are done, they're gonna have to use a bunch of counters in hand to be able to protect their life, and now they can't shambles. But yeah, that's it. I know I just like talked a lot in that one video, and actually I had a little bit of a script written, but I kind of just went off on a tangent there. I hope I kind of answered all the questions. I did put you guys in a lot of different scenarios where you know, I talked about aggressive decks, I talked about removal decks, and I talked about defensive decks and control decks, right? So if I missed anything, please be sure to let me know. Maybe I can make like a follow-up video if I really missed anything, but I don't think I really missed a whole lot, especially with this new law. There's not a lot of like different things that they can do, right? Like maybe like back in like, you know, back in set, you know, 2, 3, and 4 law before the ban list, there's a lot more things they can do, like and even freezing the amount of resources might not be the best strategy because like they just have so many different ways of like getting card advantage. But in this version of Law, it's like way easier to beat them, and I don't understand how people are losing to like, obviously like I can see Law beating people, right? Like it's still Law, right? But like it still has access to like really huge turns where like you can like just gain a lot of Dawn basically for free. But like for the most part, I see people just like making huge mistakes, and like even on stream, even they'll be like 4-0, 5-0 on stream and like regionals. And by the way, this isn't calling anyone out. Like I'm not, like, just giving like an example. I don't know if anyone misplayed in round 4 or 5, but I see these people misplaying on these streams and they're undefeated. Even if they've won a bunch of games, right? Like they've still made mistakes. That they can learn from, and they could have won. If they lost the game, they could have won the game. If they won the game, they could have won the game a little bit easier. So that's just my 2 cents. Guys, like the video. If you like the video, subscribe to the channel. It helps me out a lot. I will see you guys in my next video. Peace.